punishable by death. President Donald Trump floats the execution of Democrats who urge soldiers to disobey illegal orders. Let me not bury the lead for you guys. Donald Trump said, seditious behavior, punishable by death, and reposted, someone saying, hang them, George Washington would, as well as others saying traitors or something to that effect, and indict them, things of this nature. Now, of course, the corporate press is responding with, but these Democrats were just saying to refuse illegal orders. In fact, you as a member of the military are required to refuse illegal orders. What is the game being played? I refer to this as the Tweedledee Tweedledum death threat. That is, we've seen this time and time again as political violence escalates, where an individual is not legally permitted under the First Amendment, or I should say is not protected by the First Amendment, if they say something to the effect of, hey, you go commit crime, or if they said, I will commit crime against person. These are direct threats, incitement, etc., and you can be criminally charged. It's not protected speech. However, what happens when you have Tweedledee and Tweedledum? And Tweedledee says that I think all of insert group need to be killed. And then Tweedledum says that person's part of that group. Basically, they play the game where they threaten death. They say all Nazis should die. Then the guy next to him points to you and says, there's a Nazi. Neither one of these individuals crossed the line because each individual statement is protected speech. But if a single individual said those two things together, it would be a death threat. Now what Democrats are doing with these defy illegal orders is they have put out statement after statement over and over again, referring to what Donald Trump is doing as illegal. They say when Trump wants to deploy National Guard, it's illegal. They say the protective principle, sending out the military to guard federal buildings, is illegal. Then, after they name a whole bunch of things Trump is doing as illegal, they make a video that just blanket says, defy illegal orders. So yes, it is not so simple to say Democrats are just informing uniformed military personnel and intelligence officers of their requirements under the law. They're instructing them to defy the chain of command. And I bring the receipts, okay? Because we've got this from CBS News. 2 Illinois National Guard members speak out. I won't turn against my neighbors, saying that, quote, it feels illegal. This is Donald Trump deploying lawfully the National Guard into areas he is allowed to do it under something called the protective principle. So when these people, these are National Guard members already saying this, and then Democrats make this video, we are not stupid. But the goal is this. Regular people don't pay attention to this particularly esoteric facet of our politics. They're largely concerned with the price of gas, which has been, I got to be honest, fairly stable for some time. They're concerned with grocery prices, which have gone down relatively, but are still pretty high. I don't know if they're going to go way down. So when Democrats put out a video, they break it up like this, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, intentionally, in that if regular people come across this video, they'll ask. CNN, for instance, they'll say, why is Trump threatening the execution of these? What's seditious? And they're going to say, we just told the military not to do anything illegal, so Trump threatened to kill us. Oh no. And you know what? That's all normies are going to see. I'm sorry. I'm a fairly liberal guy, and I ask myself, how do we come to this point where I am a Trump supporter aligned with many of these conservatives, even though I've always been a fairly liberal guy, and it's because Democrats are evil. Sorry, it's just the case. Republicans are squishy losers. Some of them are evil. Democrats, some are squishy losers. Most of them, in my view, the politicians, are evil. They know what they're doing. This was planned. They knew exactly what they were doing. And Donald Trump ain't doing anyone any favors by coming out and saying seditious behavior punishable by death for several reasons. Not the most of which is that sedition is not punishable by death. Sedition is punishable by up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Treason, which is providing aid or comfort to an enemy in a time of war or to levy war against the United States, that is punishable by death. Mediaite has the story, which I'm sure is missing that nuance. They say the video shared by Slotkin, Kelly, Crow, DeLuzio, Houlihan, and Goodlander, all of whom are veterans, quote, we want to speak directly to members of the military and intelligence community. The American people need you to stand up for our laws and our Constitution. Don't give up the ship. As a group, the Democrats submitted that this administration is pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against American citizens. I'm sure you've seen the video at this point. Quote, it's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set, Donald Trump wrote. That opening volley was followed up by a number of reposts of comments assailing the Democrats, including one which called for them to be hanged, as well as a second and third post from Trump himself. This is really bad and dangerous to our country, argued the president. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors, lock them up. It's a question marks. Seditious behavior, punishable by death. The Democrats have responded, of course. And can I just say, will you get mad if I said civil war? Senator Chris Murphy, a sitting senator for these United States, follows up by calling on people to pick an effing side. So when people said to me over and over again, how could there possibly be a civil war? There's not factions. This is how it starts. Doesn't mean we get there, but it's certainly how it starts. I'm going to play the video for you, plus response from Mark Kelly and Slotkin. Before we do, my friends, you got to go to timcast.com and click Join Us to be a part of our Timcast Discord community, because unity is our strength. If you believe the work that I do and the work we do at Timcast is important, we need you to become a member and join the community. Otherwise, we can't do this. And this is true. The only reason we're able to have Timcast IRL on this show is because we have members who sign up, join our community, and share their thoughts and ideas. But as a paying member, you make all of the work we do possible. We've got early shows, after shows, community events, as well as the 6 p.m. co-host show, and Fridays, today, behind the scenes, the backstage pass where you get to hang out with us during pre-production for Timcast IRL. And some people have gotten married. That's right. No guarantees, but it has happened. Please support our work because we can't do it without you. Timcast.com. And now back to the news. Senator Chris Murphy, a sitting senator, had this to say. Pardon the expletives. Let me play.
Of the United States.
Here we go.
The President of the United States just called for Democratic members of Congress to be executed. This is not normal. We cannot allow this to feel normal. This, as far as I know, has never happened before in the history of the country. Every Democratic member of the Senate and the House, their life is in jeopardy right now, especially those that were specifically targeted by this social media post. Democratic senators and House members who were simply saying that no member of the military should act illegally or in violation of the Constitution. The President of the United States just called for members of Congress to be executed. If you are a person of influence in this country, maybe it's time to pick a fucking side. If you are a Republican in Congress, if you are a Republican governor, maybe it's time to draw a line in the sand and say that under no circumstances should the President of the United States be calling on his political opposition to be hanged. We are at a very dangerous moment right now. The President is engaged in the wholesale incitement, endorsement, and rationalization of political violence in this country. This is a very slippery slope that we are on. This is a moment for people to step up, for Republicans to step up, for business leaders to step up. Anybody who has a voice or a soapbox in this country needs to draw a line in the sand and say that it is not acceptable for the President of the United States to call on the murder of his political opposition.
So where are we and what time is it? There have been many responses. Slotkin has received 24/7 Capitol Police security. Mark Kelly says, I never thought I'd see a president call for my execution. CNN says why Democrats are warning about Trump giving illegal orders. And we'll come to that one next. But the first is this. I want you to understand what time it is. There are many who have told me I'm crazy, I'm wrong, and all of these things. And it's funny because like never more in my career life have people been like, you know what, Tim, we shouldn't have called you crazy. 2 Illinois National Guard members speak out, I won't turn against my neighbors. Quote, it feels illegal. This is not what we signed up to do. It is known that there is sentiment among the more liberal-leaning members of the National Guard, of the various National Guards, mind you, because they're controlled by the states. Now, the important thing to understand is these are not people who, for the most part, ship off and are stationed somewhere else. It happens. But these are individuals who typically live in these neighborhoods. So when Donald Trump says we're going to deploy the National Guard for the protective principle, or not really a reason why, but because he believes it would lower crime, that's legal. He's allowed to do it. Certainly, there are some members of the National Guard that feel like it's not. But whether they feel like it's not is not material. The issue then becomes, if it is a requirement of military to defy illegal orders, and they are saying it feels illegal, and Democrats, actual politicians, have already said it's illegal over and over again, sooner or later, there's going to be a member of the National Guard who refuses to deploy. Trump's going to say, we're sending you out to go walk the streets. We're allowed to do it. And he is. And they're going to go, no, that's illegal. Or more importantly, in the event, this is what Democrats are gearing up for. Historically, when you look at the Civil War, bleeding Kansas into the Civil War and the actions of Abraham Lincoln, it's important to understand a few things. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus before the American people thought we were in a civil war. Basically, what happens is you get the first battle of, you get the Battle of Fort Sumter, in which we believe the Civil War started. Shortly after this, Abraham Lincoln suspends habeas corpus and begins deploying troops. Then you get the first Battle of Bull Run, where people picnicked on the hillside because they didn't think civil war was possible. Imagine a scenario where Donald Trump, and I'll caveat this with, already Trump has utilized the military for federal raids to stop child slavery on drug farms, and it's not an exaggeration. Let me do this. Miners farm ice raid. See if we can find the story. I should pull this one up because this is very, very important. The CA farm ice raid. Let's see if we can find the story. I believe it was from July. Here we go. We got it. Here we go. Homeland Security. Maybe you want a better source or a non-Homeland Security source, but ICE and CBP arrest at least 361 illegal aliens and rescue at least 14 children. The question is simply this. It was a marijuana farm. There were 14 children working there who are not Americans. No reasonable person believes that these illegal immigrant children, refugees, whatever you want to call them, were choosing to work on a pot farm. They are child slaves. The way it works is that the traffickers will go to the family and say, we'll bring you to America, but you owe us 10 grand. You got 5 family members, $2 grand each or something like that. When they come, they say, now you all must work on a pot farm which can be funneled or controlled by cartels. Could be. I'm not sure if these ones in particular. But these kids then pick drugs to pay off the debt to the human traffickers who brought them into this country. When DHS rescues them, military was involved. And the Democrats said that's illegal. We are advancing forward. It is only year 1 of Donald Trump's presidency. We'll be entering year 2 soon. If Donald Trump deploys the National Guard, and based on the historical precedent we've already seen with bleeding Kansas in the Civil War, says, I am suspending habeas corpus along the transport lines for the National Guard into these areas, or as Abraham Lincoln did, arrests members of a state legislature. He did. Or how about just arresting people that charge a trial? The Democrats, of course, are going to escalate their rhetoric and say it is time for you to defy illegal orders. Now, the important thing to understand is Democrats have already said this. The goal right now, as people are questioning these things, they want to create a circumstance. Chris Murphy just said, pick a side. There are going to be members of the National Guard in these states like California, Oregon, or otherwise. Trump will federalize them, as he's allowed to do, and they will say no. And what's mind-blowing to me is that I have made this point for years and have been told over and over again that I'm wrong, and it is the simplest of logic. 1 + 1 = 2. What did you think was going to happen? Famously, The Confederate generals were asked, I think it was Lee specifically, he said, my home or my country? I choose my home. So let's say you're a National Guard member in California. Weekend warriors, they call them. These aren't people who are permanently out deployed or gone. They're at home and they serve on the weekends, and they're called up because of unrest, crime, or otherwise. They live in these neighborhoods. Gavin Newsom and Democrats have already said that, not specifically Gavin Newsom, but Democrats have already said disobey illegal orders. Gavin Newsom has already challenged Trump's authority, saying he has no authority, effectively calling it illegal. So what happens when Gavin Newsom goes to the National Guard in California and says, don't listen to Trump? He does not have the legal authority to give you these orders. And the National Guard member is going to say, my home or my country? You know, a lot of people told me, Tim, that's ridiculous. They're going to follow Trump's orders. No. They own a house in California, or maybe they rent, whatever. But their kids go to school there. They live there. And Gavin Newsom says, if you violate our laws and take illegal action, you are going to jail. And this guy's going to be like, dude, I live in California. I can't flee. When Donald Trump gives the order, you say, I'm sorry. The federal government isn't going to come and lock me up or take my house away. The feds don't have the... I'm going to listen to what Gavin Newsom has to say. We're already seeing it in Illinois with what they're saying, and Democrats are encouraging more. Now, The Independent reports, Alyssa Slotkin says she's been assigned 24/7 security by Capitol Police. It follows comments made by Donald Trump, who wrote on Truth Social, seditious behavior, punishable by death. Here we have the Mark Kelly. He made a statement.
Kurt Warner used to ask.
Wow, that's really annoying. But all of these local affiliates do that. I'm sure a lot of people just got... Did you get jump scared? In a post to Truth Social, Trump said seditious behavior. Mark Kelly responded, I've had a missile blow up next to my airplane, been shot at dozens of times by anti-aircraft fire and launched into orbit, all for my country. I never thought I'd see a president call for my execution. Trump doesn't understand the Constitution, and we're all less safe for it. Okay. Well, let's talk about where we are. With these follow-up statements, with Chris Murphy saying pick a side, there are going to be members of the National Guard now sitting there scared, contemplating exactly as I've already described. If my governor or commanding officer tells me not to follow Trump, and my senator in my state is saying I have to obey them, what do you do? Seriously. Some might say it's easy. Trump, he's the president. Not so easy for some. Some 35-year-old guy who's got a young kid, and he's like, look, man, I don't know. This is crazy. Sides will be formed because we don't know who the clear victor is. CNN says, Trump went from saying they should be arrested to saying hanged, et cetera, but why? They say, in fact, the members were not urging anyone to disobey lawful orders. They explicitly referred to in the video unlawful orders, and repeatedly so. The other problem is that defying the chain of command isn't just something military service members are allowed to do. They're required to do. You see what CNN is doing here? Welcome to hell, my friends. As I've already pointed out, they've referred to the deployment of National Guard lawfully under the president's command as illegal. If you've not been paying attention, it's quite simple. They've challenged him in court, arguing it, saying Trump, it's illegal for him to do this. They have now called on the National Guard to defy Trump's lawful orders. Under the guise, they've already, this is, guys, there's no point in debating with people who are lying and manipulating to try and start a civil war, okay? Let me make it very, very clear. Trump has the legal authority to deploy the National Guard. He does. He has the legal authority under what's called the protective principle to deploy the military to protect federal buildings. This is all set precedent. It's been this way for decades to centuries. So when the Democrats come out and say, what you're doing is illegal, Trump didn't have the authority to order that. Then they wait a week and go, defy illegal orders. This is the game they are playing. It is a threat. They are telling the National Guard, if you defy us, we'll come after you. Then they say, defy the orders. It's not the first time Democrats have called on the military to defy Trump's orders. It won't be the last. But what this will do is it's going to create that division that we saw during Bleeding Kansas into the American Civil War, when military members are going to say, my home or my country. Well, it's not so much the moral dilemma. It is a question for you. Let's say you live in New York City, and the mayor, the AG, the governor say to you, indirectly or directly, what Trump is doing is illegal, and if you assist him, you will be arrested and put in prison. Trump then says, no, what I'm doing is legal. What they're doing is illegal. If you would defy the chain of command, you'll be arrested and put in prison. All that really matters is whose threat weighs more. And then you'll make that choice. And it looks like there are already left-leaning individuals. Now, take a look at what Gavin Newsom did with DHS. He said, you can't wear masks as of January 1st. DHS said, ignore that. He has no authority over federal agents. The only problem is these federal agents live in California. So they're going to have to ask themselves, what if the state comes and arrests me, or they use taxes, or they take my house? Sooner or later, the bill comes due. And Democrats are certainly dancing just as much as anybody else and pretending like they're not the ones calling on people to break the law. See, this is the thing that Republicans don't understand. Democrats are engaged in subterfuge. Again, tweedledee tweedledum. Democrat A says what Trump is doing is illegal. Democrat B says you shouldn't listen to anything that's illegal. Individually, it's an opinion statement and a fact statement. Together, they're saying defy Trump, and you get it. So where do you think it goes? You tell me. Comment below. Smash the like button. Share the show. Stay tuned. We got more coming up for you today, and we'll see you all in the next segment.